Hi, everyone, and thanks for checking out this movie review. So, today we'll be continuing with the next film in my current horror franchise for the month of September, which is the Halloween franchise. And today we'll be taking a look at the eighth film in the franchise, which is Halloween Resurrection from 2002. So, yeah, I'll just kind of go through my setup and the premise of it, the cast, and then I'll get into my thoughts and reviews, which will contain spoilers. So, Halloween Resurrections, a 2002 American slasher film directed by Rick Rosenthal, who also directed Halloween 2 in 1981. Larry Brand and Sean Hood devised the screenplay. The film is a direct sequel to Halloween H2O, and it stars Busta Rhymes, Bianca Kajlik, Thomas Ian Nicholas, Ryan Merriman, Sean Patrick Thomas, Tyra Banks, and Jamie Lee Curtis, with Brad Lorry as the primary villain of Michael Myers. It's the eighth installment in the Halloween franchise. It basically follows Michael Myers continuing his murderous rampage in his hometown of Haddonfield when his old derelict childhood home is used for an internet horror show. So we pick up on October 31st, 2001. After 3 years of hiding, Michael reemerges to attempt to murder Laurie again, who has been institutionalized at Grace Anderson Sanitarium. Expecting his arrival, Laurie sets up a trap for him. After killing two security guards, Michael attacks and chases Laurie to the institution's rooftop, where her trap works and temporarily incapacitates Michael. However, Laurie's fears of killing the wrong person again get the better of her when she tries to remove his mask to confirm his identity. Michael stabs and throws her off the rooftop to her death. A year later, college students Sarah Moyer, Bill Woodlake, Donna Chang, and Jen Danzig, Jim Morgan, and Rudy Grimes win a competition to appear on an internet reality show called Dangertainment, directed by Freddie Harris and Nora Winston, in which they have to spend the night in Michael's abandoned childhood home in order to figure out what led him to kill. However, while setting up cameras throughout the house in preparation for the show, cameraman Charlie is killed by Michael, who has returned to Haddonfield. On Halloween night, equipped with head cameras, Sarah, Bill, Donna, Jen, Jim, and Rudy enter the house and separate into three groups to search for clues, while Sarah's messaging friend Deckard watches the live broadcast during a party. During the search, Michael suddenly appears and kills Bill, and it goes on from there. You can imagine he probably kills a few other people. Spoiler alert. Hopefully, you're familiar with a Halloween movie by now with Michael Myers. The cast, we got Buster Rhymes as Freddie Harris, Bianca Kajlik as Sarah Moyer, Thomas Ian Nicholas as Bill Woodlake, Katie Sackhoff as Jennifer Danzig, Daisy McCracken as Donna Chang, Sean Patrick Thomas as Rudy Grimes, Ryan Merriman as Miles Deckard Barton, Luke Kirby as Jim Morgan, Tyra Banks as Nora Winston, Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode, and Brad Lorry as Michael Myers. So yeah, that's uh, that's Halloween Resurrection from 2002 in a nutshell. Um, so this movie definitely not one of the more popular movies in this franchise, and for good reason. It's a movie that really has no reason to exist. It shouldn't have existed, at least not in Halloween canon, if you will, being tied to the other movies. So we'll just kind of get into it. I'll start with my pros. I actually do have a few pros about this movie. Um, so there are a lot of kills in this movie. I think they're definitely more than the last movie. It probably rivals just about any movie in this franchise for the most kills. Some of the kills are earlier callbacks to earlier movies that were pretty cool to see, like where he stabs the dude through the door, and he's like hanging there with the knife sticking through him. There's pretty good, decent blood, or I should say, pretty decent blood and gore in the film. It's not overly abundant, but it's certainly there. The Myers house, while it's exaggerated, has a very haunted house, very kind of a haunted house type of feel and theme to it. Which, if you know me, I'm a big fan of like ghosts and haunted houses and hauntings and things like that. So I thought that was kind of cool. At least the parts of the house that actually made sense, the so-called underneath the house tunnels that he had dug and all that kind of stuff. The cinematography actually is pretty solid in this movie. It's a pretty good looking movie, especially with the use of blue lighting that they use. Pretty cool images that are done well, especially when they're in the house. Um, it's got a good creepy Halloween score to the movie. They kind of put their own version on the theme of Halloween, sort of a more modern theme. Got kind of a ghostly echo in the background with it. I like that. That worked for me. I think Myers, it's a pretty good Myers in this movie. Um, he's a little bit more intimidating than he was in the last movie. As you know, that was one of my cons in H2O. Brad Lorry does a pretty good job. He's not robotic. I would say he's not the best Myers, but he's certainly not the worst. Kind of right in the middle again. And he's pretty brutal in his kills and pretty intimidating overall. Excuse me. My final pro would have to be, I have to bring this up because I mention it in all these horror movie franchises whenever they do something new. They took a different approach and went in a different direction with this movie. They tried something different with the whole internet webcams, had cameras and stuff like that, which was kind of a big deal at the time, early 2000s. So I give them credit. Excuse me. I give them credit for taking a different approach, of course, and trying something different than just a regular rehash of earlier movies and stuff. So now let's get on to the cons. So yeah, there's three like major cons to this movie. There's a bunch of other cons too, but I'm gonna first bring up the three major cons. And the first one's the most obvious and the one that really brings this movie way down for me than it would be otherwise. And that's the fact that they retconned the end of the previous Halloween movie of H2O. If you watch my review, you know I loved the ending of that movie. It was my favorite ending to any Halloween movie. It just felt fitting. It was closure. It was all those things. And this movie basically comes along and says, "No, no, no, she didn't." Spoiler alert: she didn't decapitate Michael Myers. That was a paramedic that Michael Myers apparently at some point had time to crush his larynx, change clothes with him, and put the mask on this guy. Well, he walked away without anybody noticing, with the knife in hand. Ugh. Yeah, that's just stupid. I mean, it's the lamest excuse ever. When this movie first came out, like most people, I thought, well, how the hell can Michael Myers be back again after he had his head chopped off? What did he grow a new head out of his neck or something? Frankly, I think that would have been a better reason given than what they used for why he's back. It's so stupid. It's so lame. It ruined the perfect ending to the previous movie with the whole Laurie Strode Michael Myers story. It's just the lamest explanation ever on how Michael survived. Just awful. That's the biggest con this movie has. It's why this movie's going to rate fairly low on this list, in case you can't tell already, like it does for most people. The second biggest con is kind of related to that first con, which is the unceremonious way in which they kill off Laurie Strode in this movie. She's basically in the movie for about 5 to 10 minutes. Why she's on the cover of this movie like she's a main character. That looks like her shot from Halloween H2O, quite frankly. She shouldn't even be on the front cover. She's in this movie for like about 10 minutes tops. And they just kill her in a very disrespectful, anticlimactic way, very unceremoniously. It's so quick and easy. And it's really undeserving for this character who's, other than Michael and Loomis, is basically the most important final girl and the third biggest top three character in this entire franchise. And it felt like at the beginning of this movie they needed to explain away the last movie, how Michael is back. And before they really get into this movie, they have to, well, we better tie up some loose ends and let the audience know about Laurie Strode, what she's been up to, and then we'll just quickly kill her off, and so we can get into what we actually want to do. I think they should have made this a separate movie that was unattached and unrelated to any of the other Halloween movies. Just made a standalone movie, whether it would have been a prequel. I guess you probably really couldn't have done it as a prequel because Halloween H2O took place in 1998, which I think was pretty well established in that movie. And I don't think they had the head cameras and all that stuff yet. But but even still, you should have just ignored H2O and said this is a completely separate, non-canon Michael Myers Halloween movie. And if you would have done that, it's still not a great movie, but at least I would have given it more of the benefit of the doubt on my list here, my ranking of it. But yeah, no, they just completely those two cons just completely brought it down so far for me. And then the final third con, which most people talk about, is the character of Freddy, who's played by Busta Rhymes. Definitely got to be there with Tina for the worst character in this franchise, the most annoying character in the franchise. For some reason, they gave him way too much character service in this movie. I'm not really sure why. I'm not sure if he had pictures or something on the producer or the director, but they basically respected him more than they did Michael Myers in this movie, which is part of this third con. The disrespectful nature that they paid. I already talked about what they paid to Laurie. They paid it even more to Michael Myers, even though with the whole kung fu thing that Buster Rhymes does, his character of Freddy does to Michael Myers in this movie, as well as other times where he's pointing a finger right in Michael's face. It's just, oh God, it's so bad. Yeah, let's get into the rest of the cons, should we? The rest of the characters in this movie are completely unmemorable, and they're basically bland cutouts for that's just cannon fodder to be killed by Michael. Um, yeah, they don't really like any of the characters in this movie. I don't care that any of them live or die. I mean, they're all just none of them stand out. They're all just bland. They're all just there to be killed by Michael. Um, I don't think the mask is overly great in this movie either. I don't mind it as much as the some of the other movies like Five and Seven H2O, the last one, because at least you can't see his eyes and his human part of his human face. But there's just way too much definition. It looks like somebody painted this mask, which I'm not a fan of. Again, I as I've said in every review before, I don't know why it's so hard for them to just get. They got it right in Halloween 6, and other than that, they haven't gotten it right in any other movie other than the first two where they used the Shatner mask. And I know they can't do that now for licensing or for purposes of paperwork, basically. The final confrontation between Michael and Sarah slash Freddy, who comes back from the dead for about the third time. It's pretty lame. It's not good. I mean, Freddy's able to pick up this power cable and electrocute Myers with it. It's just God. Yeah, I don't know. Not just not good, especially compared to the last movie and even some of the other sequels. And then I also have to bring up it kind of feels like they just inserted the character of Michael Myers into sort of this POV head camera haunted house movie that they wanted to do. And they basically it doesn't feel like a Michael Myers Halloween movie as much as it does just like a let's do an internet podcast kind of movie, horror movie, and then let's make Michael Myers the villain. That's kind of what it felt like to me, kind of a gimmick with the cameras and everything that went on and the live stream of it. Just not as much of a Halloween movie. So I mean, I could probably find other cons, but I don't need to. I think I've already brought up the biggest cons to this movie. Like I said, my biggest pet peeve is the fact that they completely retcon and ruined the end of H2O with this movie. So when I watch H2O, like some other people I've heard, I choose to pretend that this movie doesn't exist, at least not in relation to that one, as it shouldn't have. Like I said, if they were going to make this movie, they should have made it as a complete standalone Michael Myers movie without any. The only attachment it should have had is that it was called Halloween and it had Michael Myers. And in fact, they didn't even need to call it Halloween. Like another movie in this franchise, Halloween 3, they should have just called it Season of the Witch. This should have just been called something like, I don't know, Live Stream Resurrection or something, just to throw a name out there. But yeah, not a big fan of this movie. I can see why it's not liked by a lot of people. I will say I don't think it's the worst of the worst for these franchises in terms of. I mean, I could watch this movie and laugh at most of it and cringe at some of it, but it's still miles better than Freddy's Dead. It's still miles better than Jason Takes Manhattan, and I would say it's probably on par with like the Seed of Chucky. It might even be a little better than that. I'd have to think about it, but So it has that going for it. It's not the biggest abomination of a horror movie in terms of these franchises, but that doesn't mean that it's good either. I think I'm going to give this movie a 5 out of 10. Um, yeah, it's going to be tough for another movie that I haven't seen yet to rate much lower than this one because of that screwing up that ending, man. That's the and the Laurie Strode kill. 5 out of 10 for Halloween Resurrection. Go ahead and comment down below, guys. Tell me what you think of this movie. Am I being too hard on it? Do you like it? If so, what are your pros for it? What do you like about it? If you don't, what are your cons? Please like this video. Subscribe to my channel to see future Halloween reviews, as well as my 31 horror movies of October coming up here next month. Hit the little notification bell when these videos are going to come down the pike. And yeah, thank you for watching and stay scared. Bye.